Hey, what's going on? It's Joey Myers from the Hitting Performance Lab doing another article for SwingSmarter.com on the spine engine. Just did an article talking about three different things. The myth of rotational linear hitting. This is the idea that say if we're looking at Miguel Cabrera today, the idea that the legs are our locomotors. Hello. A little better circle for you. That our legs are the locomotors, so what drives our swing, what carries us. And the other thing is they look at that the upper half is the passenger, is just kind of along there for the ride. A lot of times you'll hear that in the rotational side of hitting. But the reality is that we all move from our spine. Every movement, whether you're walking, running, jumping, throwing, hitting, whatever, movement comes from the spine. And what this philosophy of the legs being the locomotors and the upper body being just the passenger, where it loses ground is it doesn't really put much emphasis on the spine. And the spine is an engine, and they've run studies on a quadriplegic, and they've looked at his spinal movement, and his spinal movement, he didn't even have nubs for legs, just kind of scooted on his pelvis, so the way his pelvis rotated along with his spine. And they found that his spinal movement was almost perfect. He just didn't have the leverage, extra extended leverage of legs or arms. So this idea that the spine is our engine, and the spine gets movement no matter what we do. And with hitting, a lot of times the spine gets overlooked because we don't think to look there. But what's happening internally with a hitter, especially these elite guys like Miguel Cabrera, I know he's a big dude, and if he could get away with anything, he's going to get away with it because he weighs over 240 pounds, he's 6'4". I usually don't like to look at hitters like this because they do get away with murder, and it isn't a survival thing that they have to do everything correctly, abide by the true explosive rotational power principles. But Miguel Cabrera, the reason why he is so good is he does abide in the principles. And then today we're going to look at his spine and how he uses his spine as an engine to his swing. This is a home run rigged up that he hits to left center. Let's back it up a little bit. So what happens with the spine? There's three different movement types that Dr. Serge Grakovetsky talks about. He's a physicist, electrical engineer, and he's best known for his work on the spine engine. And he talks about three different movements. Two of them being grouped together as one. That's the flexion extension of the spine. Extension would be like arching your back or just standing up straight, and flexion would be like doing a crunch. The second one would be side bending or lateral flexion. So that'd be just bending, standing straight up, and then bending to the side at the waist, bending your spine. And then the last one is axial rotation, which is our ultimate goal when we hit, is we want that axial rotation. So Dr. Serge says as long as you get two, the third one is almost always the end result. So we have to get some kind of flexion or extension, lateral bending. That's what's going to give us the axial rotation. So what you'll see here, now this is, we kind of start to lose because the camera switched over to a slow-mo, so we don't get the full where, Miggy's foot's picking up already, so you don't get the full extension part. But what you'll see is he's an extension here. He's bending at the waist. This is almost like a hip hinge. So he's bending at the waist. You see a nice straight spine, head in line with the spine. This is extension or lordosis, is also what Dr. Serge calls this, lordosis. Doesn't mean that we need to be arching our back, but just that we're in a nice straight position, and in Miggy's case, a hip hinge position where we're just moving at the hip. We're just bending at the hip. I mean, you're seeing the knee here, but when we're talking about the spine and all the different vertebrae and hinges in the spine, none of those are moving. It's just him and sticking his butt out a little bit, but he's got a nice straight spine here to start. And then what you're going to see is let me erase this so you can see it clear, is you're going to see his shoulder angle will come down right here, and this indicates the side bending or the lateral flexion, because you can see this shoulder coming close to this hip, and we're getting a crunching action happening right here in the side. So that's our flexing. So we've extended or gotten lordosis right here. We're still in lordosis. We've got a little lateral bending or lateral flexion at the spine, and then what that's going to give us is axial rotation. Like I said, most of these elite hitters, with an exception of some of the big guys, they do all this stuff. When you look at the smaller guys like Robbie Cano or Jose Batista or Andrew McCutcheon, he's a small guy, they have to do this stuff. All of this has to be done along with forward momentum, because they are smaller guys. They can't get away with murder like some of these bigger guys. But as you'll see with Miggy, he does all of this. And there's a reason why he was a Triple Crown last year. But you'll see that nice straight spine, that hip hinging here. Then you see the side bending there. A down shoulder angle gives us this little crunch into the front part of the obliques and taking almost the rib cage down towards the hip. And then from there we get axial rotation. And the video actually paused there, so we're going to go through a couple frames, but you see good lift action. And this is actually referred on MLB.com. I can't remember who it was that said it, but it calls it a friction-free swing, and I think that was perfect. Put it into words on what we should be striving for. And when we use the spine engine, that's what we get. We get a friction-free swing. We get, or like what Chaz Pippett calls, effortless power instead of powerless effort. I like that idea of a frictionless swing, and I think they were referring to Miguel Cabrera, and a few other guys. We'll look at David Wright too. He's got another friction-free swing, and he's a smaller guy. He's definitely outweighed by about 50 pounds by Miggy, but we'll look at him next. So I hope you learned a little something about the spine engine. Remember, there's 3 different ways of spine moves. You got extension and flexion, or lordosis and flexion. Those two are grouped together. You got lateral bending, and you have axial rotation, which is what we want at the end of this. So if you got any questions, post them for the video. Other than that, remember, swinging smarter by moving better. Joey Meyer signing out.